Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Golden, and welcome to another Starbase Weekly live stream. Happy to be here with you all this week. Got exciting news as we get closer to the next flight of Starship, which will be Flight 6. As of now, we finally have a date for the expected launch, which is something we will definitely talk about during the show. Before we do that, though, I will go ahead and introduce our guest for today. We have Nate joining us. Nate, thanks for being here.
Hey, glad to be here. It's been a bit, and always exciting things going on down at Starbase.
Agreed. Yeah, same for me. Always, getting caught up after that 2 weeks off. So hopefully you'll be able to help fill in some blanks if I happen to miss some things. Helping out with that, we also have Alex joining us today. So, Alex, thanks for being with us.
Happy to be here. It's going to be a good show. There's a lot of interesting developments.
Awesome. And helping us out with questions and donations will be Stephanie. Astro Joe is out for today, so thank you, Stephanie, for handling that for us.
Glad to jump in and help out.
Awesome. And I guess we'll go ahead and start right off with the big news for this week. If those of you who have seen SpaceX's latest post, well, I guess it's not their latest post, but on November 6th, they announced the 6th flight test of Starship, which we are now expecting on November 18th. I think this is really exciting because this is probably the first launch announcement that didn't come with a pending regulatory approval at the end of it. So, as most of you know, the launch license for Flight 5 also covered Flight 6. So there's a few changes to what we're expecting for Flight 6, but everything is mostly about the same as far as what we should expect. We'll cover some of those differences here in a bit, but before we do that, let's go ahead and watch this summary from Flight 5 that they put together. I'm going to see if I can get the audio to come through here. Hopefully it doesn't duplicate itself. So just give me one moment here. All right.
stage 2. Go. Flight directors go for launch. We have liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange. Max Q.
Ship engine startup.
Stage separation. Booster respect burn.
On Albion 0, 30 seconds till catch decision.
Confirm 30 seconds to make that decision.
10 seconds till catch decision.
Hot stage separation confirmed.
Flight directors go for booster return. Operator go vote is set true. We are go for catch.
Booster coming in hot for booster catch.
Booster FTS is saved.
And I ignite 13 of those Raptor engines, and this view is incredible right now. I can't wait for us to hear the sonic boom.
Booster landing burn startup.
We can see those chopsticks now. This is absolutely insane. On the first ever attempt, we have successfully caught the Super Heavy booster.
Sevilla has caught the booster.
Ship avionics power launch nominal.
Starship has entered the atmosphere. Starship is approaching the peak heating phase of entry.
Landing burn startup.
Starship is on target. Starship has landed.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the audio there. That was pretty epic.
So
Yeah,
is
I'm
that
sorry to play
for
that
you?
all the way through for those of you who haven't seen it, but we wanted to kind of cover this since I only really got to watch it once. It came out while I was at work, so I just watched it quickly. So that was as much for me as it is for all of you out there. But as I said, amazing footage there. Lots of things that we haven't seen before. I think they do a really good job of stepping up their recap videos every single time. What are your thoughts on that?
I got a question for you, Zach, because we all watched this live from afar, and you were there. What was it like, getting it, to see it return in the catch attempt? What was it like being there?
I mean, it's pretty epic. It's kind of hard to put into words sometimes. I was myself mainly focused on capturing good video, so didn't quite enjoy it the same way that I would say most other people did, actually, being more present for it instead of, looking through a screen. So I'm kind of looking forward to next time actually being able to enjoy it because I won't be there for this next one. So I'll most likely be watching it from home like everybody else. But yeah, I mean, I recommend everybody getting down there to check it out if you live in the United States. And even if you don't, I think being able to pull off making it down for one of these launches will become a little bit easier in the future, especially with the increase in cadence. So, a lot of times people would have to wait weeks, if not months, and potentially even miss it if the amount of time they had available expired. So I would say, once they get down to launching every week, it'll be a lot easier for people to come down, especially if they're out of the country. But yeah, I highly recommend seeing it in person.
Yeah, and I'd go as far as to say is if you have a chance to go down to Starbase just to take in Starbase, do it. I had a chance to go down for Crowfest, and pictures don't do it justice. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing that they included with this was a summary of the last flight and also a little bit of details about what we should expect for Flight 6. I'm not going to go through all of it, but some of the more interesting things that they pointed out in here was that number one, we will see another booster catch attempt. I think some of the flight profile changes will all be with the ship. So they will be doing additional tests with the heat shields. I think they moved some of the heat shields in locations where they expect to install landing hardware for the ship. And so I think we saw some of that on Flight 5, some of the aluminum tiles that they had on the side of the ship. Do they still have those same ones on this ship?
On
Yeah,
30,
looks-
31.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. What they've done is they used those aluminum tiles to kind of give them an idea, and they've removed multiple rows off of the sides of the ship around the kind of the, I guess you'd say, the apex of that curve.
Right. Yeah. So, and I mean, that's really important because being able to determine whether or not it will survive reentry without having those TPS tiles in the locations is pretty important to know. I mean, in those locations, it's pretty far up the side of the vehicle. So hopefully they end up getting good news back when they attempt this. I don't think, I mean, even though the plasma did curve around the vehicle, I'm going to just like go to that spot here. It did curve around the vehicle. However, I feel like just off of visuals here, these tiles look like at least some of them, a few rows of them probably would survive without them. Obviously, without having more data to base that off of, this is kind of just my opinion. But I think I'm hoping that we'll get some good news when they do this attempt.
You can see the 3 aluminum tiles in that frame. And they look like they're still intact.
Yeah, I think, okay, so are they the sunken ones right here?
Yeah, and directly down and right to the right of that one. It's a full
This
height.
one?
Yeah.
These two, are there 2 right here?
No, I think the 2 were that side.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, they seem to do pretty well. I know that at one point, one of these ended up melting, I believe. It doesn't show it in this recap footage, but...
Yeah, right there it popped.
Yeah, down here.
Yeah.
Did it show it happen?
If for a split second, you'll see it like a blister.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that'll be really interesting. Hopefully, did I miss anything else in here that was worth covering?
They're going to do an engine relight. You may have said that.
Say that again?
They're going to do an engine relight.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, so they will be doing a single engine relight, which should prove their ability to deorbit the vehicle. I'm still wondering what that's going to look like as far as missions where they're actually able to deploy Starlinks, if that's going to require them to have essentially some sort of energy or power generation on there. Obviously, that would probably come in the form of solar panels. So I'm wondering if that's going to be required, given how much longer it's going to stay up in orbit, how you need those batteries to remain functional during that time. But at least with this deorbit burn, that's not really going to be necessary, especially since it's not an actual deorbit burn. It's just proof of concept that it should work when they attempt it. But yeah, I'm excited. November 18th will be the day, and I think the other big announcement is that it'll be later in the day. Did they give a specific time? The launch window opens at 4 p.m., so that'll be, what about an hour and a half before, maybe 2 hours before sunset?
About hour and a half.
Right. So, I mean, that'll be cool if it actually ends up pushing a little bit away from 4 p.m. so we can get that effect that you get with a lot of the Vandenberg launches, the jellyfish. But yeah, this time will allow them to land during the daytime in the Indian Ocean. So probably should improve some of the views that we'll see, especially like the buoy cams and whatever assets they have down there that are tracking reentry. So that'll be very interesting. I'm sure we have some questions about this. Let's see.
From the launch, one question here from ALL. Hello, what was the light source for the last couple of underwater shots? Was it the ship itself, the buoy, or fuel on fire? Thanks.
I think that's. I don't know. I was a little confused on this. I think it's just the flames being underwater.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it's
Go on.
and it's the last stuttering as the Raptor shut down.
Probably eating themselves a little bit there.
There's a few
Yeah.
questions on this last flight. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with Zach.
Do you think what do you think the ship landing will be on the next flight test live stream? I think the last time wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean they showed it on this last one. I think given that they'll have the same marine assets down there, we'll probably see some more footage of that this time around too. I imagine this shot right here will be a lot better, and we'll probably actually get to see the entire flip maneuver depending on how zoomed in this view is. I think this is a pretty zoomed in view, and the wide angle shot will end up showing more, probably similar to what this is showing right here. So yeah, we should be able to see a lot more of that landing burn this time around.
Yeah, especially being in the daytime, it's going to be awesome. Do you think the ship's second burn will be prograde or retrograde? That's from Michael Berfoley.
Well, for this launch, I don't think it's going to be considered a deorbit burn, so it'll probably just be prograde burn, I'm assuming.
It could be tangential, so that doesn't affect the trajectory.
Right.
Thank you. JK video. Do you think it'd be worth putting little stubby landing legs that they use for SN15 and land on a drone ship? I'm not sure a drone ship, but maybe on a landing pad.
I don't think that's in their plans at all. I don't really see a reason why they would do that. I mean, you would need. I mean, I'm assuming that they could theoretically land on one of the existing drone ships. They don't have any recovery hardware that would help secure it to the deck, though, so I don't really see them developing that in such a short period of time. And I think their goals are a lot bigger than that. They don't really get much out of landing it at sea, unless they're trying to prove that they can do point to point, which in that case, I'm assuming they would still probably use towers in that case. So yeah, I don't really see a lot of value since they're planning on catching it with the tower. I don't think landing it on a drone ship really helps them out towards that goal.
No, I don't think we'll see legs until they're in the process of making lunar and Mars landers.
Right.
That answers Space Noodle's questions about recovering a ship. That's obviously not going to happen. Why did the ship explode? By JK video once again.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of saw it a little bit better in the live stream, but it appears that just the act of tipping over kind of caused it. They didn't really show it here very much, but I think when it tipped over and kind of smacked the water, probably caused some bending of the internal structures. So most likely probably downcomer collapse or something like that, or actual rupture of one of those tanks.
Agreed. From Jimmy Mack, did you notice right after hot staging, you can actually see the middle sea level at Raptors on the ship adjust from outward to pointing straight back down again? I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah, they did show the gimbling of the engines right there, which is pretty cool to see.
And Chloe, g'day RGB team. With Flight 6 marked on the calendar, when do you think we'll see Ship 33 fly? Thanks for the coverage.
So Ship 33 should be the next one after 31, considering that Ship 32 is still sitting over here, right there behind Booster 11. Booster 12. So yeah, as far as we know, that one's currently planned to be scrapped. So Ship 33 should be the next for Flight 7. And I don't know. I guess it depends on whether or not they're going to change anything with the flight profile. Anything that may require them to get another launch license could put a setback for that next launch. But I mean, theoretically, we could potentially see it before the end of the year.
Yeah, we were discussing this some last night, and some were more optimistic. I was kind of in the middle. I said February or March, and then, of course, engines rolled into Mega Bay 2 this morning for Ship 33. So I think the timeline will be sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, a few gifts here. Toby Waby gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Let me scroll down here a bit. And Jax gifted a membership, and Callista Lee also gifted a membership. And I think before we go on to Massies, Zach, I think Mauricio wants to answer a question here about how did the oxygen go this week?
Hey everyone, it's Mauricio. I just wanted to give an update about the oxygen system. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, cool. So yeah, we actually received it earlier than expected. So yeah, that's me and Fred. Me and Fred were having a conversation about how well the oxygen system worked, and he said that I don't feel a difference at all whatsoever. So like a difference. I don't feel any different than when we got on the plane. So that's definitely a good sign that it's definitely working. So I want to thank everybody that supported and everybody that's watching for allowing us to get this and be more comfortable up in the air. So yeah, that's basically it. We did calculate more or less how long will it take before we need a refill. It's going to be about, I anticipate, between 3 and 5 flights.
Oh wow, just one canister lasts that long?
Yeah, it's I posted a screenshot in Patreon about the before and after the flight, and there was barely a dent on that. Didn't do too much. Part of it is because we don't turn it on until we're above like 9,000 feet. So, we only had it on for about like 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. So that and then also we're using that particular device. I don't know what that one's called. Do you know what that's called, Stephanie? What do we call it? It's not the face mask, but it's just there's less flow of oxygen going through.
Cannula?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that helps a lot in conserving the oxygen flow. So since we're using that, that's gonna help out with the refills. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I just wanted to give an update. We have it. It works. Thank you so much.
Yeah, big shout out to everybody who donated towards that. Really appreciate all the support from the audience. You guys are amazing with helping Mauricio continue to fly and do all the things that are necessary in order to allow him to stay up in the air as long as he does. So thanks again to everybody who donated. And I guess with that, we will go ahead and move on to the Massies part of the show. And really quickly, I just want to make sure I didn't skip over any questions there, Stephanie. I think there was possibly one or two more.
Yep, there's one here from James Wilson saying, why such a short window for the Flight 6?
Well, the window for the last one was about 30 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's kind of just keeping with that trend. Is it 30 minutes for this one as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Difficult to say why it's so short. I had my theory on it. being kind of based on the fact that that launch was early in the morning, and you start to deal with a lot more marine and air traffic after a certain time, so they wanted to keep it short. But now that this one's in the afternoon, I don't know. All my guesses are kind of out the window, so I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
It's pretty much the same. And they probably don't want to launch it after dark because I think that for sound complaints, more people will be home.
Yeah, good point.
I kind of wonder if
And
it's
the-
confidence and they realize at this point that if they're going to have a hole, it's going to be major enough that they'll have to recycle and go another day.
Yeah, good point.
They've been ultra reliable, except for one of the flights, I guess, but all the rest of the flights have been very reliable, launching pretty well on time within their very short windows. A couple of more questions quickly. I read that they are changing the rate at which a Starship passes through the atmosphere. Have you got any thoughts on that there, Zach?
Yeah, that was something that they mentioned. I kind of exited out of that, or else I'd pull it. Actually, hold on. Here, I have it. Yeah, so they mentioned that they will be coming in at a different angle, essentially. And so I think basically what they're trying to do is test different entry profiles and make sure that the flaps are going to be controllable when they're entering at this higher angle of attack. So yeah, I mean, this is something that I think they've done over time with Falcon 9. So they've have different landing profiles depending on what's required for that mission. And so instead of testing those during an actual mission, I think they're just gathering as much data as they can and kind of testing both extremes as far as a low angle of attack versus a high angle of attack. That gives them a lot of the ability to kind of fill in some data points in between.
Awesome. And which state, from Andy Elder, which state or country or island do you expect the first ship catch to be? I'm thinking Florida.
I would say Starbase, probably. I don't think that the Florida location will be active by that time. I believe they said that they were expecting, before they allow SpaceX to set up their launch site down there, that they were expecting them to have achieved bi-weekly flights by then, right? So I think by the time we reach bi-weekly flights, they'll probably already be ready to do their first catch attempt for the ship. So it's more likely that we'll probably see them do it down here before anywhere else.
Okay, just a couple of quick more donations and gifts. Got a new member, James Howard. We've got another new member at Astra, and Andy Alder, $2 for tissues because those masks really irritate. And Rocket Profit gifted 10 memberships. Thank you very much. And that's all for now. I think there's a question relating to a booster a bit later on.
Oh, yeah, we'll go ahead and touch on that when we get to, I guess, the ring yard area. Speaking of boosters, we still have all of these components from basically Flight 4 and Flight 5 down here. So they still are in the process of scrapping everything from booster 11. All of these components that are down in this area kind of looks like they've taken a bit of a break on it. They're not really in a rush to get all of this stuff scrapped. And then we also have the hot stage ring from booster 12 down here. So that one is recently, it looks like they flipped it over. So this is pretty much the orientation that it was falling in, I believe. So you can kind of see how the bottom side of it looks, which it seems to be mostly in good shape other than some obvious dents and some cracked beams down here. But yeah, still really cool that they were able to recover this. I'm sure they'll probably end up wanting to do the same next time. Even though they've already done it once, I'm sure they'll still get additional data this time as well too. So, if they're doing things as far as changing ignition sequence with the ship, and they want to look at how the surface of the hot stage ring is affected, it makes sense to want to continue to recover that. Moving on down here, we have the ship static fire stands sitting near the flame trench. And this one is currently set up with the new maintenance platform installed. So those of you who've seen over the last few weeks that they've created this new maintenance platform for this, it looks like it's currently fit in place. Difficult to tell what they're using to actually lift it, but I'm assuming it's something similar to what they do on the orbital launch mount. Probably some chains and like the equivalent of like a garage door opener. About 4. I think there's probably, if I'm seeing correctly, they might be down here.
Below the ring, you can see the orange chain catchers.
Down here?
Can't see the
Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like a chain hoist.
Yeah, this is cool. I think we'll probably end up seeing something similar to this for the orbital launch mount. Might be a bit larger, but the way, it should fit really nicely up on the bottom of that structure given how it's constructed, but we'll probably talk about that a little bit more as we get there. So right now, Ship 33 is waiting to have its engines installed as of, I believe, yesterday. The first RVACs arrived for that, and one of them actually ended up being the RVAC. Those of you who remember the one that basically crashed into, or I guess the drone crashed into it. But when they were filming the RVAC engine being driven around Starbase with a Cybertruck, it was actually hit by a drone. I kind of feel like they did it intentionally because as a drone pilot myself, I can't imagine making a mistake like that. It's coming directly for you. So it almost looked intentional, but they did take that engine back to McGregor, I believe, and I don't know if it needed some additional work done to it after that happened, but it is back now. And so that same engine is currently being installed on Ship 33. And I believe this morning we saw the center engines arrive as well too. I'm sure those were probably already on site in the Raptor nest. But yeah, Ship 33 is getting its engines installed, so we will probably see a static fire in the coming weeks. I wouldn't be surprised to see it before this next launch attempt. There's not really anything standing in the way of that other than their own ability to get those installed quickly enough. And the good thing with Ship 33 is that unlike Ship 31 and Ship 30, it's pretty much ready to fly as far as TPS tiles go. So the other two ships have had work that needed to be done leading up to the flight in order to replace some of the tiles. In the case of Ship 30, they replaced all of the tiles. So I think the turnaround time as far as final work that needs to happen with the ship will probably be a little bit lower with Ship 33. And that's, of course, assuming that it performs its static fire test before Flight 6.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how quickly 33 has been built when you kind of consider past ships and how, I'm not exactly sure how long 31 has existed, but I'm sure it's at least a year. That's kind of been the lead time, and 33 is only, 4 or 5 months old, I believe.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we should look forward to seeing a lot in the future. They're moving a lot quicker right now as far as manufacturing goes and assembly. So 34, where's that one at? I know that I believe they are about to start stack the aft section. I know that they're bringing downcomer sections in to Mega Bay 2 over the last week.
Yeah, I believe that aft section is the last piece of the puzzle to come into Mega Bay 2.
Yeah, so that's pretty quick for Ship 34. So moving on, we do have some updates with the do we have a name for this structure yet?
I just call it a structural test stand.
Yeah, it doesn't have a fun name like we had for the nose cone jail yet. But yeah, the structural test stand is pretty versatile, and it seems like they're always changing things on it. So right now they have started to put it into a different configuration. It's a bit difficult to tell right here. So in the previous testing configuration, they had 20 pistons along the outside, and I don't think those pistons are currently in there now because they are still down here. So I think. Go ahead.
They look like they're switching them to the shorter ones with the silver tops, there.
Okay, so they basically switched out these long ones for the short ones. So are all of them already installed other than these three? Is that what's happening here?
It looks like we can see the silver tops of them.
Right. I guess maybe the three missing ones are back here, although this is probably in the way for me seeing that.
Yeah, and by the telehandler, there's these center three, but they don't have the complete sections for the center or the inner ring.
For this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm guessing they would be swapping these out for the shorter ones too, right? Or are they already?
It looks like they're the shorter ones, but it's hard to tell with that ink because it looks like they'd be a lot higher than the outer ring.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing to point out here is the little puck in the center right here. So this is the component that was sitting out in this location for several months. I think the initial speculation from some folks was that this was the basically a testing structure that would allow them to test a 35 engine variant of the booster. I'm still not seeing that personally, but we do currently have that section in here, and it looks like it's covered with a tarp right now. But hopefully over the next few weeks, we'll see them untarp this and probably add some additional components onto the top of it.
And add Nelson studs around the outside edge of it, so I would assume they're going to concrete all that in place. Not done it yet.
That'd be interesting because it would kind of prevent them from reconfiguring this again if they wanted to. But I guess with it being taller, all they could do, they could increase the height of it and put something else on top of it if they needed to.
Yeah. We know there's another section of rings for the top. The top section has lead-ins still, so there's another level to go on.
Right.
And depending how low they recess that center, it might give them enough clearance.
Yeah, so you're expecting that they'll fill this in with concrete soon?
Yeah, the disc, the donut.
Yeah, it's tough to see from other angles if there's studs along this inner wall.
I think early on there's some ground photos when those first came in that had some.
I was trying to mess with the exposure there to see if it would help out a little bit, but not really. Cool. Anything else from the Massies site that we should touch on?
Those are the
Go ahead.
major changes, I thought.
Yeah. They've taken part of the top pad apart, but we don't know why, and it could just be checking things out.
Yeah, so this ring was on top of there?
Yeah.
Did it cover these components right here?
No, that ring they were using it as sort of the interface between the top hat and this test structure.
Okay.
So it's inside that white band. You can in the inner edge, yeah, right there. Yeah.
Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll move over to the Sanchez site.
I'm just going to jump in with an awesome donation from Ad Astra here for $100. Thank you all. Keep flying. It's amazing, Ad Astra. Thank you so much. It's so generous.
Yeah, super generous.
And one from earlier from Crane Man from $25. Hi, RGB team. Still love to watch these really great episodes and the awesome photographs Mauricio is sharing with us to keep us up to date with weekly changes at Starbase, Texas, and other places. Keep up the great work. My contribution for fuel for the next flight. Regards, Crane Man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for those donations. That is, as Stephanie and Nate said, extremely generous. Really appreciate that. I think it's been a while since I've seen a donation that large. So Shout out to Ad Astra and Crane Man for those donations. And I guess we will go ahead and move over to the Sanchez site. So, of course, the big thing that we're looking at the Sanchez site lately is the new launch table. So, as y'all can see this week, they've made some good progress. I believe last week they had most of the corners mounted, or was it just 2 of them?
Just 2.
Okay, so since then we've gotten the other 2 corners mounted. I'm guessing they're these 2 since they still have the lead-ins, I guess.
Correct.
You can call these. What?
Those were transport to prevent them from hitting low cables.
Yeah. So they still have these on there. They haven't removed those yet. I'm guessing these are the last 2 to be installed. And then they've installed 3 out of the 4 wall sections. I don't think the 4th one has arrived yet.
It's still AWOL.
Yeah. So it looks like we're still waiting on the last major component of this. But right now they've gotten most of them in place. And I think the next step after this, I believe they'll probably wait for the last one just so they can. I'm assuming there probably won't be any shimmying required, but in the event that it was required, I think you'd probably want to wait until you have this last one in place in case you have to, move these around a little bit. But I imagine that they're probably their tolerance is probably pretty good on these, and they won't need to do that. So the next step will be a bunch of welding. So they'll be welding these joints right here in between the sections, and then probably some welding connecting them to the walls on the lower deck as well too, and probably all along the seam in between these walls as well. So a lot of welding that will be taking place on this, and following that they'll also have the wall sections that they need to add in. So most of those are down here. So you can see these ones are they go on the inner wall. So maybe I'll get a better shot of this. I can't really see it that well here, but on the inner walls you can see they have the 2 notches right there, which you can also see on these panels. So these are the inner panel sections and these are the outer sections. So once they get those, they'll go in these gaps right here. I think that's a little bit far down the road, probably at least 2 to 3 weeks out, if I had to guess, given how much welding is going to be done on these other sections. And it doesn't look like they've actually started it. Even though it's from pretty high up, you can usually actually see it, but I don't think they've started any of that welding yet.
No,
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
There's no tents or anything yet.
Yeah, the interesting thing I've been looking for was assuming there was going to be some sort of stairway to get down to that lower level from the inside, but I don't see that. It looks like they're kind of flat down here.
Yeah, there's only this, you can see in the corners about halfway, there's little black ovals. Those are kind of the only penetrations. They're very small. If you zoom up, or if you pan up a little bit and go to your right, on the flat part, there's a little black oval.
Right
No,
here?
no, you can't. It's on the flat portion by where the clamp would be. There's no. Yeah, those little black areas are the only penetrations between the
The 2
structure,
levels.
top and the
Okay.
bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is coming along pretty nicely, and now that these panels are on here, you can see that you can't even really make out the square structure underneath it anymore. But I think that the lip that goes between the wall sections below and the upper deck will allow them to have a basically a maintenance platform that lifts up and down, similar to the first launch mount. And I think a better comparison would be the Massies static fire test stand. So that'll be interesting to see them develop that out here too. I'm assuming pretty soon. Well, it'll probably be one of the last things they do. It's probably a little bit lower on their list of items that they need to take care of, because they can still access this area without a platform like that. So yeah, I think that'll be one of the last things we see. But I'm really excited with the way this is coming along.
What's nice is it looks like we'll be able to at least see the upper deck, how much it's kitted out with the hold down arms, and
Yeah.
hydraulics and such.
Yeah, I think that more than likely, we'll probably see some of that installed before the actual upper deck, the basically the water cooled top surface. I think they'll probably install most of that before they get this top deck installed. Just for the ease of being able to slide some of the stuff in there. I mean, it kind of looks like some of it like the arms need to slide in through the sides and not from above because of the way these cross beams are here. So yeah, maybe they will go in from the sides. But as far as potentially installing any kind of pipe work or other mechanical components like hydraulics, most of that I imagine you would want to be able to drop it in from above if possible.
Correct. Because there's only 2 small entry hatches you can
Yeah.
see on the left side.
And I'm trying to get another angle of this. So these are the some of the panels that are being assembled for the upper deck for that water-cooled deflection surface. And this is actually the top of that. So a lot of people have been a little bit confused when they look at these because of the beams that are going across the top. I think these are basically stiffeners, potentially for travel, but also to allow them to actually lift them into place. So they had something similar installed onto the other the pancake that went underneath the orbital launch mount, and that's basically what they attached all of their lifting brackets onto. So yeah, I mean, it looks like these are upside down, but this is actually the top. You can see some of the holes through it, at least on this panel right here. Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this is going to be number one, how the water is supplied to it, and also what they end up doing along the edges, because right now the edges are open. So it's going to be interesting to see how they seal that off, like what the water manifold system actually looks like for this.
I'm hoping it'll be located inside the ring and leaves the perimeter nice and clean.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you have like an overhang, then anything installed onto the outside of this would be pretty well protected. It maybe might not look as good, but I don't know. I think that installing pipes inside of this would be kind of a pain, especially since how large the arms are going to be. It kind of, I feel like it's going to block off some of these holes that go through here. As far as if you had a pipe going straight through there, it would interfere with the arms retracting. But luckily, we'll be able to see some of that from these aerial shots over the next few weeks.
Definitely.
Yeah, and as you were saying, the big question is going to be whether or not the water is supplied from inside the table or outside. And, you know, if they end up sealing off all of these edges and then having the actual water pipes coming up from below, that'll be interesting as well, too. And speaking of that water system, as most of y'all know, over the last few weeks, they've started on some of the support frames for what we expect is part of the flame deflector bucket. So we have a few different frame pieces under construction down here. I think about 4 or 5 of them. I think this is 2 stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. Looks like they have 6 of them they're building right now.
Yeah, and I noticed these down here.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of water manifolds.
Yeah,
I believe it's the start of the bucket.
Really?
Yeah, if you look at this offset spacing, they're pretty much 1-to-1. Like if you had a pipe connected to the lower one, the adjacent, and then if you scroll up to across from the launch OLM, those pipes right there, are about the right diameter of what they used at Massies. But it looks like they're going to be connecting them in the middle because the top end is capped off, so that'd probably be the top of the bucket.
Interesting.
Highly
Yeah.
speculative right now, but
Yeah, I mean, because I would like to see what the rest of these look like, because this one definitely looks like multiple pipes are supposed to connect to this. Yeah, I see what you mean now when I think about the other one. Yeah,
and
they're
that
they're kind of. Go
the
ahead.
oval hole looks like it's where the arm would come off for where the side.
Like for the other manifold sections.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's a ton of green pipes down here as well too, which I've heard differing opinions on. Some of them are being assembled in another area down here. This isn't the greatest shot of them. Yeah, so down here, I think some of these were expected to be some commodities for the launch mount as far as like different gases that they send to the launch mount. However, I think that's a little interesting because usually in the past, anything that's green is usually related to water piping. So that'll be
And
interesting.
varied.
To see yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if this is the case. I mean, there's a ton of it though. So, there's more down here as well too. So whatever it's for, there's going to be a lot of it. That's for sure. The L shape that they have going on here almost makes it seem like we should expect these to go inside of a trench, which I think some of y'all mentioned before the show. We'll take another look at that when we get to the launch mount as well too. Or sorry, not the launch mount, the launch site. Returning back down here, I don't know if there was anything else we wanted to touch on related to this launch mount structure. I'm positive, as always, we're going to have questions on this, so let's go ahead and just take some of those right now.
Okay. From Liam Donald, do you know yet if the LM2 will contain outer engine startup equipment?
As far as we can tell, it does not look like it's going to have that.
Yeah, I mean, even when you consider the space inside of it, and the way it's designed, and the access, it doesn't give the feeling that that is something they're giving consideration to at all.
Well, I've thought about that, and the compartments for that, they're actually pretty large. So I suppose it wouldn't surprise me having that structure in there, like the pistons that retract in and out. However, I just don't think you could fit all of that piping inside of this table with the way it's constructed. And beyond that, I think that if they were planning to have the Raptor QDs, that they would have already cut the holes through these. They would have shipped them with the holes.
And I was referring more to that support piping, not the pistons themselves, because the cavities are big. It's the area around the cavities, even the openings for people to move in and out to work on said components is tiny. It's tight.
Right.
And those, if you look on the left side, you can see how wide the stiffeners are in those bays. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So there's along the lip, to the front, go to up. Yeah, you can see the big steel. No, the center one where the QDs would, or yeah, there's a huge amount of steel they're using to
stiffen the face of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're basically like shelves.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
And and if you look on the ground, there's a bunch of them stacked up that they're going to be incorporating. So I don't think there's a lot of room.
Well, even beyond that, last night as we were looking at this, one of the things we noticed is these arms themselves, the cavity is about the size of the arm. The current clamps are wider than these openings. That may be why those slots exist, is the head of the clamp may have a guide or something to guide into those slots on each side of the arm cavity.
About these,
because The current clamps are definitely wider than the opening for these arms.
Right.
Very good. Now, from Michael Bertoldi. I'll get that right, I think. Spicy one, Zach. Can you explain a little bit your point about a mobile OLM?
No. I think I've talked about it a lot in past episodes, and I'm in the process of making a short episode about it. Honestly, I've just gotten in so many debates about it online that I would rather cover it all in one go instead of talk about it in, pieces. So yeah, I'm sure most of you who are watching now are at least aware of the theory. So I'm gonna hold off on further arguments on that for now. But
Fair enough.
I will say that my mind has not changed.
And I had my rebuttal and everything written out.
Go ahead.
I'm joking. I'm totally messing with you.
I'm
Okay.
pretty much fully on board, Zach.
Yeah, I'm not.
Most people on my team are. Sorry, go ahead.
I haven't made my mind up either, but I do understand where you're coming from with that, Zach. I think it's a great idea.
I'm a fence rider. I used to be fully on board. Now I'm riding the fence.
You would.
I'm still no QD guy, though.
Yeah, I'm fully no QD as well.
Okay, from Tanner, any idea what time? Any idea when this OLMB will be finished?
No, but the initial date, I guess, seems to have changed. The date we're expecting most of the Pad B site to be completed was sometime in February, and that was when the contract for the CC 8800 crane was supposed to end, but it seems like that contract has ended early, given that that crane has mostly left the site right now, which again we'll touch on when we get to the launch site. But I don't know. There's not only a lot of work to do when it comes to welding all of this together, but installing all of those components, installing the upper deck, and all of the water systems as well too. And then the amount of groundwork that they still have left to do with the actual flame trench will take a while as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I would say sometime in January or February still is probably what I'll stick to.
Very good. We'll keep moving on. Missing tools. I wonder if the AWOL side will house the BQD, which Craneman also, Diogo also was asking a similar question. Do you think the fourth wall section taking a while longer is coincidence, or expecting it might be a bit different from the other three?
That certainly is a possibility. One thing that I've kind of noticed down here, trying to find a different angle of this. So some of these corners have some penetrations through them that don't exist elsewhere, specifically on this side. They've got some wall penetrations down here, and there's more going along the bottom edge right here. So I wouldn't be surprised if the QD is located on one of these two sides. I don't think we've seen like a Z plus marking on this yet, which is something that we did see on the other launch mount, and that kind of like helps you determine the orientation of it. So we haven't seen that yet, but yeah, it certainly is possible that the QD could be on this side. I think it'd be a little weird, though. I would expect the QD to be either facing the tower or directly away from the tower. As far as just like keeping the vehicle symmetrical to some degree. Yeah, so it's tough to say. I think we have seen the actual main structure of the QD arrive. I don't know where it's at though. It might. I know
Airport.
It's at the airport.
Yeah, they moved it.
Oh,
back to the airport.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just leave it out here, considering that almost everything else for this launch structure is on site. Yeah, so we don't know what that component is going to be mounted to, whether it's mounted to the tower or if it's part of the actual launch deck. I would assume it actually makes a little bit more sense for it to be on the launch deck, other than the fact that it will interfere with the water system. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they end up integrating that component.
I expect it on a gantry cantilevered over to the booster from across from the tower.
Well, that would certainly be interesting and would probably protect it a little bit better than it is currently.
Okay, thanks for that. Crane Man once again with questions, which is awesome. How will they handle the pressure of the water heated up by the booster inside the water-cooled plate on the second OLM, or will it spray like the deluge plate on the OLM1?
It'll probably spray like OLM1.
Yeah, I mean, without seeing it constructed, it's kind of hard to guess on that. But yeah, I mean, what Alex said makes sense.
Yeah, I actually didn't notice the holes in the top of that pancake plate till just now you pointed them out. I didn't see them in the show and tell. One last question. Might they use electric motors for the OLM hold-down clamps?
I mean, it's certainly possible. It might make things a little bit easier as far as like connecting this to the ground support equipment at the launch site. But I mean, as far as we've seen on the initial launch mount, everything was hydraulic. I don't know if they necessarily had any issues with the hydraulic system, so I'm not sure if there's a reason for them to move away from that. But yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Okay, my questions are clear. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, moving on. We still have not seen where these tanks are going to end up. There are some pedestals that look like it may be for this at the launch site, which we'll discuss here once we move over there. But beyond that, sorry, some of these images are a little grainy from far away, but they look a little bit better once I zoom in on them. Not much movement with all of these vehicles and tank sections that are over here in this corner of the site. Still have ship 26, 31, and the test tanks are both test tanks 14.1 and test tank 16 are still down here. So yeah, haven't seen much movement. They do have the SPMTs underneath this transport stand. I think this is for booster 13. So yeah, waiting to see booster 13 come out again. But they currently, I think not yesterday, but the day before, brought out the hot stage ring for booster 13. So that at this point we're assuming has been integrated on top of it. So the next step will probably be somewhat of a wet dress rehearsal or at least tanking test with booster 13 and ship 31.
Yeah, we saw the lifting jig for the hot stage ring come out, so it's definitely been integrated, and of course we saw SPMTs go in to fetch 31.
Yeah, and did the transport stand went in as well too, or is it sitting on top of the transport stand?
I think we think that 31 is on a transport stand in that corner.
Okay, cool.
Although it's not on the stand with the stabilizer pins, as far as on. Hang on, no, there's something about it's one they can't put it back onto and chopsticks. They were talking about that in chat yesterday.
For the ship?
I might be wrong. Sorry, there was something in chat yesterday that they may have to change the ship. They may have to put the ship on a different transport stand to get it to destack it. So I should have researched that more. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So elsewhere at the Sanchez site, I'm not sure if there are really too many other changes to discuss. I feel like I'm missing something, but
the chopsticks and carriage?
Yes, of course. Yeah, the chopsticks. A pretty good amount of work. And sorry, there's so many images. I'm trying to find a good one. This might be decent. I think there's a better one down here. Trying to find a good one for the lighting. This might even do it. Yeah, so over the last few weeks, basically since they started, wow, all this snow just fell off of my roof, so sorry if that came through the microphone. Yeah, so they've been retrofitting these chopsticks, basically the same reinforcements that they put onto the first set of chopsticks for pad A, they're doing on here, and they did have all those brackets down here essentially, and it seems like they're all gone. You can see them welding right here on one of the rib reinforcements that they got down there. And I think most of them are installed on there. They're probably just welding them in place. And I think they're doing some additional work on the carriage as well too, but it's kind of tough to see what they're adding onto here, minus some of the braces that they have going along the edges of the carriage. And of course, the QD arm is mostly assembled, still missing the front section of that, but the actual main arm of the QD arm is down here, and it's still waiting on the rest of it to show up, though. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen any other components for this yet.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most anxiously awaited pieces of kit, because everybody's curious if they're going to make any changes to the way the arm, the upper portion of the arm, it retracts and extends.
Right. Yeah, I personally still think the QD arm gets out of the way like kind of slow, so it'd be interesting to see if they do anything to speed that up this time around. Let's see, anything else at Sanchez?
That's about it.
No, I did find my little bit of research there. It looks like the stand it's on is not for stacking, and the reply to that from John in your server was, don't think stacking is a problem, it's destacking when they need to use those guide brackets for the ship on the stand.
Oh, are you talking about the booster?
No, I'm talking about the ship.
Yeah, Jake mentioned in chat that evidently one of the ship stands has sensors where the stand and I guess the chopsticks and all the communications can kind of work with one another to lower the ship into place, and it's not on that stand currently.
Okay.
Thanks, Jake.
Cool. Well, in that case, I guess we will go ahead and move over to the build site. I wanted a angle kind of showing the parking garage, but I think I may have to go over to a different image for that, so bear with me here for a second.
Apologies, Jack. There's one thing, Zach. There's one thing back at Sanchez. The Pez dispensers disappeared.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. So, yeah, that was something that I'm sure got mentioned last week, that the Pez dispenser had moved over to the Sanchez site. And over, I believe in this area down here, we can still see, I don't know if this is in the way. So some of the old Starlinks that were in there, oh, here they are. So we believe these came out of the actual Pez dispenser, and these are still down here, probably being scrapped. I don't know. Did you guys? I'm assuming these were not real satellites, though, right?
We're assuming they're just dummy Pathfinder.
Right. Yeah, and then the actual Pez dispenser loader was basically fully scrapped. So I think at first it kind of looked like they were going to make some alterations on it, but it appears that all of it's gone. So this is the last remaining parts of it that I can find down here. So that's interesting. I think basically we're probably going to expect to see them build another one. Interesting that they couldn't just modify this. Any thoughts on why they couldn't use this one? Well, me neither. Yeah. I mean, because I imagine if there was any issues with any of the internal components, they could have just stripped those out and installed something new. But to scrap the entire thing is interesting. I'm guessing we'll probably see a completely different mechanism for installing those into the ship in the future. But I imagine they probably want to move on to that soon, whether that's with Ship 33 or Ship 34. I would hope to see that within the next 2 ships, potentially.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll just integrate it on the top of Mega Bay 2. So they can just, from one of the engine stands, maybe just load it from there.
Yeah, that would make sense. Probably be a lot simpler than having to use a bridge crane in order to get that up there.
And stabilizing it with...
All right. I think I found the image I was looking for. So, yeah, moving on. They are finishing up the exterior on the parking garage. Still haven't opened it up fully to allow people to park on the top level. I don't think either. I think it's only the first 4 levels that are open. The top 2 are not. But they are still finishing up on some of the siding on this. But it looks really good now. Looks good from the other angles as well, too. They have this white siding that goes along the staircases. I don't think I have any images that'll really show it from the other side. You can just barely see it on this one. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if they end up putting something along this wall as well, too. But I think that's probably the most that they're going to do is what we've already seen. And moving on to everything else at the build site, these images are a little bit difficult to make out some things given the time of day I think that they were taken. But in the high bay, we have ship 31 sitting in the front right corner. And that one is still having some work done on its tiles. I think if you were to look at any of the live stream cameras right now, they have 2 of these wind services lifts down here working inside of the high bay. And then that's really the only thing in there right now. Both Ship 33 and Ship 34 are inside of Mega Bay 2. And then in Mega Bay 1 is Booster 13, 14, and 15. And I think they've started stacking 16.
Or 16 are in there.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Zach? 31 is High Bay's last hurrah?
Well, I think that really depends on the Star Factory completion. So once this section of the building is completed and they're actually able to move everything from Stargate into this building, I think we'll probably see that. Most of the stuff that they've been doing in the high bay lately has been tile work. And given that we probably won't see any major tile rework on ships 33 and 34, maybe there's less of a reason to expect high bay to be used again after 31. There's always a possibility that they have some other test tanks that they're working on right now. And if that's the case, they'll probably stack those inside of the high bay. But yeah, I mean, I've been saying for a year or more that high bay's days are probably numbered. And we're probably definitely getting closer to that date for sure.
Word on the street is it's going to be there for another 12 months.
What was that?
The word on the street, a conversation was overheard at Crowfest that High Bay will be there for 12 months more only.
I was in that conversation, and I remember the word being by the first of the year, it wouldn't be surprised if High Bay wasn't on the chopping block, is what I heard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to what I've heard. And it should probably take up most of the space that's currently here as far as into this parking lot, and potentially even requiring the removal of this parking lot. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it should definitely be taller than both of these structures, and wider and deeper as well too. So the thing is that most of the I think a good corner of it will probably be everything that's currently in Mega Bay 2. And then the rest of that building will be ships, because we will see a lot more ships than boosters going forward. And that is the same, that goes true for the actual Star Factory as well too, that most of this building is going to be used for ships. So obviously with boosters, you'll probably need a place to actually examine them after they return from launch. So there'll probably be a few post-flight stands in here, which will basically be similar to the engine install stands. So yeah, I mean, there's 3 engine install stands inside of Mega Bay 2. I wouldn't be surprised if there's the same number, maybe up to 6 of them in here. And then both of these buildings will probably be repurposed for ships. So all of the retrofits that they've done inside of, or not retrofits, but everything that they've done inside of Mega Bay 2 will probably be duplicated in Mega Bay 1. And then both of those buildings will be used for ships because they won't be tall enough for boosters. So yeah, like I said, a portion of this will be for boosters and the rest for ships. And that's going to be really exciting when they finally reach that point. There's not really much else we can talk about as far as the bays go. There was some components that were installed last week, which I don't know if it's worth me showing, but there were some additional work platforms that were laying outside of this Mega Bay 2 last week, and those have now been installed into the front right or front left corner of the building. I think there was 4 of them, and then there's another one under construction at the Sanchez site right now too. So it's kind of funny because this building's been open for so long at this point, and they're still working on some of the support structures on the inside. But it's also really cool just how much additional outfitting has gone into this building. I think once they finally finish that, I'm planning to work on an episode that kind of allows you to see what those internal work platforms look like, since we kind of have a good idea, even though haven't gotten the greatest view inside other than I think a few images that SpaceX posted. Beyond that, they've finally gotten the area behind Mega Bay 2 finished. I think at one point this was just a single lane road, and they've finished the wall down here and kind of got plants going all along it. And now that they've gotten that done, it looks like they're working on the drainage back here. I think all of this drainage connects to the Star Factory. So there's a huge drain that runs along the side of the building where all of these drain spouts that come off the roof go into that one drainage culvert. And I think they're redoing it, either making it larger or something, but they've got some new penetrations through this wall down here and a big drainage, like a gutter manifold down here. So I think they're increasing the size of the drainage potentially. It's tough to say for sure.
And I believe some of the pipes go under Star Factory for the old ring yard.
Oh, they go, okay, so they go through here.
Correct. One of them definitely is branching off to, and then comes out there. And then one's definitely branching out, like you said, and intercepting the roof drains from Star Factory.
Right. Yeah, I mean, drainage is super important when you have a building this large. So not only are you draining the entire ring yard area, but the entire roof of this building. So quite a bit of surface area that has to drain all into one location down here. And moving on, I guess, to the Star Factory. Gotten a lot more progress with this side of the building. Okay, that's not the greatest image. Yeah, so gotten a lot of the roof section done down here. Most of the connecting roof done in these areas as well too. and they are currently working on this, one of the 2 remaining sections that they don't have any of the wall supports up for. So finally starting to fill this in, and then now we can kind of see what that elevation change on the roof looks like going across here. So I think some of us were expecting this wall to continue straight across right here, but it looks like it's going to be slanted to join this side of the front side of the building, which is pretty cool. I would say it looks kind of chaotic down here with all of the elevation changes, but it's definitely coming together nicely. Kind of difficult to see much else going on in here now that they've gotten the roof up, but I believe most of the electrical work through the floors is finished, and it looks like gotten a good amount of concrete poured down here now. I would say most of it. It's really difficult to tell with the lighting, but it looks like all of this is concrete now. So that's a good sign. With the other part of the Star Factory, or the entire rest of the building, the electrical was the first thing they did after they did the footings. They did the electrical in between the footings, and then they did the concrete, and then erected everything after that. So they're pretty much working in reverse this time around, but still making really good progress. And you can see, once again, the bridge cranes going all the way down to the end of the building over here. So very, very large factory. On the front of the building, still got some work going with the mechanical room. So you can see all the penetrations going through here. I'm guessing we'll probably see a large air handler, if not multiple of them, installed in this area soon. And of course, as most of you know, they got the windows installed up here. I don't know if the actual windows are in here yet, or if this is just still the frame for it. I think the actual windows are installed. Looks kind of shiny.
Yeah, and right to the right, there's the last one, the triangles for the corner.
Have they installed these 2?
No.
I don't think they've installed any of the corners.
Okay. So they're just covered right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting close. I'm sure there's still a ton of work going on the inside. But yeah, having this air handler installed will be key for the rest of the building actually legitimately opening up, as far as being able to move stuff in from the Stargate building into this building. And this week, they've also done a good amount of work with the glass and siding. Actually, I think this gray siding right here actually ended up getting taken back down this morning, so that's weird. Actually, probably expecting black siding to continue the way they from this side of the building. So yeah, it was kind of weird to see that gray siding at all. But yeah, it's cool the way that the windows basically mirror the opposite side of the building. Let's see. Any other Star Factory related topics? Do we have any questions on this as well too?
A couple of questions regarding the high bay. What is the likelihood of them, from Michael Bertoldi again, what is the likelihood of them building something like a smaller VAB over there at Florida?
I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of a smaller VAB is, because I would label all of these as smaller VABs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is the ability to like transport things horizontally throughout the VAB, and they have a lot more bridge cranes in there as well too. I mean, it's just a larger structure that's in some ways kind of generic, that allows multiple types of vehicles to be constructed in there. So yeah, I don't think it would be necessarily comparable to that, given that it's custom designed specifically for Starship. But whatever we see here will probably be much larger than what we have on these two, and will probably be what they build down in Florida. I know that they have at least footings for one Mega Bay down there, but I would not be surprised to see them just get rid of that altogether and build larger bays instead of these smaller ones.
Yeah,
I think
and
Star Factory in Florida is actually moving to the adjacent lot that they haven't started clearing yet.
Right.
so Alex, and one more couple of questions here. Could they use the high bay for scrapping the old ships, as there are no tall cranes around to scrap a ship?
Well, historically, they've done a lot of the scrapping, at least with boosters. They scrapped booster 8 inside of Mega Bay 1. It's been a while since we've seen them scrap a ship. I think ship 27 was the last one they scrapped, and that was done outside. It's a little easier to do it outside, although they don't have the crane that they used to do that anymore. So yeah, I think in the front section, in the middle, in the opening of the bay, they could do it in that opening if they wanted to. But saving the high bay just for scrapping things I don't think that really fits their goals.
Cool. Another question. There's another question came to Ros Haven Nazarov. When do you predict they'll install Raptor 3? And my question is, those new Raptors we saw, are they version 2, or I've heard rumors about a version 2.5. Any ideas on those?
They look a lot like version 2s, and they're definitely not a Raptor 3. We know that. I think the big question is the interface different on top somehow? The gimbals look very similar. And so, the conversation that was had mentioned that it would be a version 2.5 or 3 on 33, but it was a very short and purposely vague conversation. So it's hard to know.
Okay, that answers that question. Thanks.
Yeah,
And
earliest would be ship 34, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's after that. One thing that I've kind of mentioned, I think I posted on X. So they have Raptors all the way up into the 500s, I believe. So that's enough for, I think it ended up being like 9 flights or 10 flights. So I imagine they want to work through most of those, and so they don't just have a few hundred engines sitting around and nothing to do with them. So yeah, I think at least at minimum on the boosters, we'll see them continue for a while. I think it really comes down to what the first booster to launch off of Pad B is. With the ship, it doesn't necessarily matter as much, because it's just integrating onto the booster. As long as the actual QD is the same on the ship, it could still fly on Pad A with Raptor 3s. But yeah, I think one of the ships will probably be the first to receive it.
Cool. And I guess a statement from Al4. The $6 million bay could be high bay, be disassembled and rebuilt taller, deeper out by Hopper as a low to no maintenance storage shed for old recovered boosters. SpaceX going to have some soon enough. Thank you. I guess that's more of a statement. And just before I leave here, Stan J gifted 10 more memberships. Thank you very much, Stan J. Appreciate the support.
Cool. And yeah, as far as high bay goes, I don't see it being gently demolished. So we probably won't see it reconstructed anywhere. And I don't think they like high bay very much. So I think the last thing they would want to do is keep a structure that they strongly dislike.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. All right. So moving on. I guess we'll go over to the launch site. There's not much happening in the village this week. So we will go ahead and start with Pad A, which, in my opinion, I think the progress has kind of slowed down a little bit, but there's still a lot to talk about here. So for one, that CC 8800 crane has mostly been packed up. They're still breaking down some of the 12-meter sections down here, which go inside of these containers, I believe. And yeah, most of the actual crane itself is gone. So
basically, you've got one half of one tread left from the main crane body.
Yeah. and everything else has been packed up and left over the last 2 weeks. So yeah, they're definitely, I guess, not really expecting to use that for the QD installation, which is interesting because I don't think you can do that with this crane. I don't think this crane is capable of lifting that.
Yeah. So, when it comes to Marvin's capability, possibly they do have a boom extension, and it would be really close according to what it weighed. It can lift quite a bit in that configuration. It can lift about 200, upwards of 230 tons right now. It's lift more than a lot of people realize, but the moment you start extending and have to reach, those numbers drop quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, it needs to reach,
It's got to lean quite a bit. I mean, because of the arm itself.
like right here in the tower. Yeah.
And so, they could reconfigure Marvin, but SpaceX hadn't typically used this crane for major infrastructure lifts. They've done small things, but they tend to, for these bigger lifts, they like using somebody else's equipment. So I would expect something else to show up when they're ready.
Right. Yeah, they did use it for deconstructing the tank shells at the orbital tank farm, but that was probably the most the most they've done as far as construction work goes with it.
So, Buckner could supply another one of these cranes configured correctly, and it could do the rest of the work without a problem. So who knows? We'll know in weeks ahead, as always.
Yeah, and I think that whenever the crane arrives to do that work, it'll also need to be capable of lifting the chopstick arms, which aren't quite as heavy as the previous version that was installed on Tower A. So maybe not quite as heavy, but it's still a heavy structure. So that even more than the QD arm, I'm doubting that this crane can handle.
Oh, well, you got to remember, they have a power boom for that crane, for that model crane, and it can lift 1,000 tons. It can be a bigger, much bigger configuration than what it's in now. This is a very light configuration compared to what it's capable of. So.
Okay. So yeah, potentially could still handle it then. Yeah, and I guess with the chopsticks, it's not lifting too high off the ground as well either. So in a power boom configuration with this, it may be able to handle that. That would be interesting.
Yep.
So beyond that, another interesting thing I noticed this week, which I guess was maybe visible a little bit last week as well too, but we've questioned whether or not they will continue to use this bunker for all of their controls and comms equipment. And at this point, I would say it looks like they are going to continue using the structure. So we do have a lot of conduit that's going underground towards this structure. I think there's a little hole that accesses the bottom of it right here. So all of this is basically going into the building through that bottom hole. It looks like some of it's coming up the side as well too. So yeah, I guess we will continue to see this. I was expecting they would remove it because this bunker is a little bit more hardened than this one is. However, given that the flame trench will be going in this direction, may not necessarily need to worry about that as much. The other big thing that this doesn't have compared to the other building is a very large HVAC system. So there's a pretty massive HVAC system on the other structure, which I guess is something that can just be added here, although they don't have the wall penetrations preformed for that. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But another cool thing that you can see from this angle, which actually lines up pretty perfectly, potentially, is this culvert that is being constructed down here. So overall, this has been pretty large difference from what they did with Pad A. They had preformed or precast concrete culverts that they placed in the ground, but all of this is being formed out with rebar. So these are much deeper and heavier duty culverts, I would say. And just with the height of this, you can tell that it's, when the road comes over here, it's going to be a little bit more inclined to go over that. So, I mean, I think the top of this wall kind of goes above the top of the driveway right here. That's what it looks like from this angle. But this is going to be taking a lot of the commodities from the tank farm through here and basically over to the wall of the trench, the front wall of the trench. And sorry, I'm going to grab another angle of that. So yeah, I mean, right now, if it continues straight, it looks like it'll go towards this bunker right here. And then potentially from there to the commodities trench right here. And as of right now, so they finished pouring the culvert a few weeks ago, and now they've already started laying out. I believe this is cryo tubing. It looks a little different than cryo tubing from the past because it doesn't have such thick insulation on it.
It's vacuum jacketed.
Okay, so instead of the just standard insulation, it's vacuum jacketed.
Yeah, they have it on the tower as well.
Yeah, it seems to be that their way of, well, just doing a better job insulating it, honestly.
Yeah, it's usually around 10 to 20 times better insulation than the foam.
Really?
Yeah.
So how does that work? How do they pull? Do they have to actually like maintain a vacuum on them?
There's little ports that you can put pumps on to draw it down. And there's interesting connectors. Some of them you'll continue the vacuum on the entire line. Others, each section is an independent, which I believe these are because most of the joints are the standard.
Okay. Yeah, so this looks like there's 2 rows, possibly 3. I can only see 2, but I think there's another pipe right here.
There's a LOX, a methane, and the vapor return from the methane is a black one on the bottom.
Okay. I'm trying to get a better angle of this if I can. Yeah, so that's just going along the floor, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can kind of see them. You can see them continuing on this wall as well too, along with some potential pipe racks going against this wall.
Correct.
Yeah, and so this is where before the show, where they were talking about potentially those green pipes that we saw at the Sanchez site may go along this wall. Yeah, that'll be interesting, given that under my assumption those are usually used for water, but I guess we will quickly see. But yeah, beyond the liquid supply for liquid oxygen and methane, as well as the vapor return, you're also going to have a bunch of different gas supplies going to the actual launch structure as well too. So mostly nitrogen, oxygen, and helium and methane. So I think they've gotten away from helium as far as the engine startup goes, but they still use it within the actual tanks itself. So we'll probably still see a helium supply going here. Beyond that, we're still waiting to see more progress with the actual trench itself. So they have done some excavation here, but nowhere near as much as I think a lot of people were hoping by now. But they are also still doing the tiebacks on the actual wall. So I think that may be the final thing that they're waiting on to actually finish excavation, the excavation work. Do we have any idea which sections they've completed on this already?
The 2 sides, and they are working towards the tower.
So they've already done this, though?
No.
So they've only done this side?
No, the bottom, those 2 parallel walls up to the commodities trench. So yeah, they've barely done anything.
Oh wow! So they got a good amount left to do then.
Correct.
Yeah, so I guess we're probably waiting on that to finish before they're able to finish their excavation work. I'm surprised they haven't done it on this side yet.
There is a question regarding that depth. Any speculation on the flame trench depth? Doesn't look like Doesn't look like they'll be going much deeper or for now. That's from B1062.
They can't dig much deeper until the sheet piles are anchored, or else they'll buckle from lateral earth pressure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you can easily tell that the CFA pilings go deeper as you go towards the center. You can see a step between these two right here. So yeah, it's definitely probably going to go a good amount deeper. I think there's some in between here as well too, possibly.
Possibly. And the side next to the commodities trench might not need to be anchored since it's a step down. So the commodities trench is supporting the soil on the southern side.
Oh, and they also have pilings going all through here, right?
Yeah, you can see it's some of them right along there. And on the other side by that excavator with the red arm, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 rows of 3.
Yeah, and so right now they have a lot of the dewatering system set up along the wall as well too. You can see here. So these are all connected to dewatering, the dewatering system going along the wall, and that continues along this side as well too.
And those were about 60-foot deep boreholes, so they're probably going to be digging at least 40 feet deep for the trench.
Yeah, that's a pretty deep trench. I'm excited for all of the rebar work that's going to be going on down here as they form all that stuff out.
Months.
Yeah, going to be quite a lot of work. I would say it'd probably take longer than what they did with Pad A when they reconstructed the blast surface for the deluge system. I mean, this is a significantly larger area that they're going to be working in, so yeah, it's going to be a ton of work for the rebar crews, and I think it's probably the same crew that's already started down here. Yeah, interesting that they're starting in this area, actually. I think that what we're kind of seeing here is the portion that's going to go underneath the road. So in order to extend this road, they have to actually get the commodities that are going underneath it finished first. So yeah, I mean, I wonder if this kind of gives an idea of how wide we're expecting this to be, because I think it's going to basically continue the same width as what's already here. So
yeah,
coming down through here.
And there's speculation that these piles extend almost to where the excavator is at the top of the frame.
This one?
But no, the red one by the trench. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it should continue pretty much all the way over to the
bunker.
Yeah, the bunker, right? So they may go all the way across.
At some point, they're going to have the hippos and pumps, the subcoolers.
Right.
But that's fairly narrow.
I mean, is it possible that... no, I guess they can't fit in this area. I'm guessing this is like a where all the valve boxes, the valves will be.
Yeah,
basically the part of the bunker that was... let me see. Basically, this half of the bunker down here, which is all the control valves going to the tower and the launch mount.
Correct.
Yeah, and speaking of the hippos, there were these 2 that have been installed down here. This has been interesting to me. So we know there's a third set of these, which I'm not sure if this is the same layout that they had for these.
It is.
Okay, so I guess we'll see that third one installed here.
Yeah, I have a crazy theory that they're going to store it pre-cooled.
You mean like basically pre-chill the methane before?
And the locks and the storage tanks.
Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking that this would be for detanking. So basically, as you're detanking, you're cooling it because it should heat up in that system during the detank, right? So I was kind of assuming that this would handle all of their detank from Pad B.
Yes, but they could also circulate it if they wanted to and store it pre-chilled in addition to chilling it during detanking.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I wonder if that reduces or allows them to load faster if it's already cooler, then they can speed up the load process.
It should, and when they put in the air separation unit, they're going to have nitrogen for days, so it won't matter if they're wasting it because they'll have to dump it either way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and as you all can see, there's more conduit going from this area down here. I think potentially also going to end up along or inside of this culvert. And then we have another pad down here, which has some CFA piles underneath it, I believe. That one's a little bit interesting because it doesn't. I can't tell what would go on top of that because there's no. There's nothing else that it's mirrored to.
No, it's in line with the commodities trench or tunnel.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, oh wow. So, do you think maybe there's probably not piles in between these two areas, right?
No, but there's some still in the concrete by the rubble in that area. It's
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
with the way this wall looks, it looks like the pipes are going to drop down into here, and that it's not actually going to continue all the way across. It's kind of what it looks like.
I agree.
But it could continue at a higher elevation and then step down over there as well too.
Yeah. Or more vertical tanks or vaporizers. There's
tons of options.
Yeah.
Speaking of vertical tanks, there is a little pad that was noticed down in this area. Let me see if I can find a better image for that. Maybe this one. Yeah, so you can just barely make out this little circular pad down here. Nate was showing this to me before the show and thinking that this may potentially be one of the homes for the vertical tanks that we've seen at the Port of Brownsville. So I can just go ahead and quickly show those really quick. So these are the vertical tanks that we've seen there. Assuming that these may potentially end up at the launch site. And this would be one location for those. Difficult to tell the scale if it actually fits here, but given that we haven't seen any other vertical tanks around here, this is probably a good assumption that it's going to go here, at least one of them.
Yeah, they look like they're about the size of the methane tanks at Massies.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to refigure out this whole tank farm once they get everything set up.
Yeah,
I think we got a good understanding of everything that's here so far. But it seems like they're not only extending it, but upgrading it in some ways as well, too. So yeah, going to be very interesting to see how this turns out in the end. And moving along to this side of the tank farm, also have these pedestals, which I mentioned earlier. They've now gotten the actual pedestals laid onto the foundations for, assuming these are two fairly wide tanks. Are y'all thinking that the ones at the Sanchez site are going to go here? I feel like it's just a weird layout for those.
It is, but they're wider than the current horizontal hot dog tanks, and their pedestal is long and skinny, so having 3 supports might make sense.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like they're getting close to being able to receive those here. So I'm guessing they're bolting them onto the embeds that are in the ground right here. Once they're done with that, they should be ready to bring those tanks into this site. Getting them here is going to be interesting. I think they'll have to lift them from the side over here because there's not really a way of driving underneath here anymore. So probably have to lift them from the front of the tank farm area.
Yeah, Marvin's got a long walk ahead of it.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, I think he can still fit through this for the most part. Yeah,
Should
probably
be.
just walk through here. And there is some more retrofitting going on to these tanks over here, the water tanks. It's really interesting because every time they cover them up the same, and it still just gets stripped free by the exhaust plume. So I don't know. I guess they're going to probably continue doing this for the next few launches because eventually Pad A will get reconstructed like Pad B and end up with the flame trench and probably won't have the plume traveling through the tank farm the same way it does. So in the meantime, continuing to replace the insulation and outer shielding on these isn't too big of a deal for them. Other than that, this tank farm looks pretty clean as far as everything that they've removed. They still have a lot of pipe work down here that I think they may eventually want to remove, but there's a whole trench that goes around the outer perimeter of this, but they don't really seem to be in too much of a rush to remove all that stuff.
I think it might happen soon because they rerouted the liquid nitrogen supply to the Lux farm, right below your cursors.
Right here? Or wait, this is
Yeah,
the log. Right.
yeah,
This
right there.
because it
Before
used
they
to
were
go down under here, right?
yeah, right about the middle where the pipe is sticking up out of the trench.
This one.
No, the next one actually. Yeah, that's where it used to drop down.
Yeah, so I guess they're almost fully disconnected from the original lines.
Correct.
Or maybe they are disconnected from them. I think these are the only ones that still go down into the trench right here.
Yeah, methane's the last.
Wow. Been such a journey to actually retrofit this entire tank farm. I think a lot of people assumed it was complete after the large tanks were removed, but it's still ongoing. So pretty impressive the way they've pulled this off over the span of the last 4 launches, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Complete rebuild on the fly.
Yeah, I wanted to make an episode about this, but they are still going, so I've just been holding off on that. But I'm excited to do it once it's finally finished. But this tank farm is going to be massive once the rest of it is complete. And far better protected as well too. So I'm excited with the way that it's turned out.
Zach, what are your thoughts on the methane? Well, the wall in front of the methane tanks coming down.
This wall right here.
No, I was on the highway side.
The tall wall. They've started taking the tall wall down.
Oh. Well, they still have containment right here.
Yeah, they're leaving the short wall in place. They're just taking the tall down.
Not sure. I'm imagining they probably have more components that they want to install in here, so that wall's just in the way of it. Especially if they're going to be doing pre-chilling the way that Alex mentioned, there may be additional components that need to go in here, so that would make sense.
Thank you.
And finally, I guess we'll move on to the Orbital launch site A. And I think there's been a ton of work going on down here over the last few weeks. It's really difficult to actually tell what it is they're doing, I would say. So as far as one of the big items that they do between every launch is replace all of the hard lines for the Raptor chill system, but that was already replaced before the static fire test, so it's been a little bit difficult to say what they've been working on lately. They've done several tests with the chopsticks, just opening and closing those, and a few retraction tests with the ship QD as well too. But I've been trying to figure out what they've been doing on the launch mount, but obviously over the last 2 weeks being at work, I haven't been able to pay attention too much. Have you guys noticed anything?
Next to the QD, they're started armoring the lower pipes. I don't.
Oh yeah, around the bottom edge of it.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to see them in these aerial shots. I know Starship Gazer has some good ground images that would show this, but I do not have any of those ready. So yeah, they've added some armor around the pipes that are going to the actual booster QD on both sides.
Yes. There's a couple at the bottom of the frame below the blue and white crane.
Right. Are you talking about like panels?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're finally lifting those into place.
Yeah, that's interesting that they waited this long to do that. I know they've done some work swapping out a lot of the components that are like the valves and stuff for the vents that are down here, but yeah, interesting that they've waited this long to do that work.
The Sola might be holding up much better than they originally anticipated.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on that. Like, I'm wonder how well it is holding up. Obviously they wouldn't be going with a flame trench unless they noticed some issues with this. So I think there's still got to be some sort of degradation going on to the actual flame deflector plate. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely holding up for now. I would love to see like some close-up shots to actually get an idea of like how much ablation has happened to the actual top surface of this. But of course, unless Elon or something decides to post something like that, we'll probably never truly know.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
Yeah, and one of the things I've also had an eye out on is the chopsticks, but it doesn't seem they have done some work on the chopsticks, but most of it seems to be like adding new components on there and not a lot of work to the actual landing rails and stuff. So it seems like those held up pretty well during that that first landing attempts or the first successful landing. So good news for that they haven't really had to do much retrofit to the actual chopsticks, and that's allowing them to basically achieve this rapid turnaround that we're about to see.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
The QD arms seem to hold up quite well also.
Yeah, it took them about four launches in order to finally reach a point where that wasn't getting damaged each time. So that's certainly good progress. I'm sure everything they learned with that is going to go into whatever they do for the QD arm for Pad B. And Stephanie, did we have any questions on basically launch site stuff?
Question for Alex, I think here. The two vertical tanks you have there in your shot over in the two new vertical tanks where the old vertical tanks used to be. What are those two white tanks there, Alex?
Water storage for the Det X/Fire X. They're re-putting the Fire X inside by the methane tanks.
That's from B1062. Read this. If SpaceX isn't able to extend the concrete into wetlands around Pad A, could they potentially make a single outlet flame trench? I think we're looking forward to the upgrade of Pad A there.
I feel like the flame trench here will probably be similar to the one for Pad B, which means it'll more than likely go in this direction.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really see them altering it too much from the other one. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that requires them to do something with this wall. I mean, the flame trench may naturally send it over the wall better than the wall already does itself. So yeah, I mean, I wonder if that'll cause them to have to redo any other stuff inside of this tank farm. But this should be much better protected than what it was originally with the vertical tanks either way.
Agreed. Could they do from Carlisle? Could they do a combo lift like they did with the orbital launch mount originally? I think for some of the equipment over there on Pad B.
I guess I'm not understanding the question.
Could they do a combo lift? So they did a tandem lift on OLM-A. I guess the question is if they need to lift something heavy onto the tower like the chopsticks, could they use the LR11,000 or maybe another LR11,000 to lift, say, the chopsticks up? But I think Nate answered that question earlier.
Yeah, I mean, they could do a tandem lift, but I would suspect if the launch mount is going to need to be lifted in place, they'll source the crane they need to do that also.
And from Roshin, I'm sure I'm not saying your name there. Apologies. We always get this question. Any OLM2 completion date guesses?
I think I may have answered that one earlier in the show, but I think probably February or March potentially. I do think there's a lot of work left to be done, especially here at the launch site. So I would not be surprised if the actual launch mount itself is completed before the flame trench.
Cool. A couple of donations. Stan J gifted 10 memberships. Jim Cabot gifted a membership. Jax, that's JACQS, Jax gifted a membership. Papa G became a member. Welcome aboard, Papa G. Papa G's a long-term member of our broader community. Question, how far along is booster for Flight 7? So I'm guessing that's for booster 14.
Booster 14 has undergone cryo testing at Massies, and they, we're assuming, are installing engines on it currently. It has not had a static fire test, so that'll be the remaining thing on that. But yeah, I mean, I would say that we should probably expect it to be ready to perform a static fire within a week or two after Flight 6.
Agreed. And one last question from B62. What configuration do we think a future crew access arm will be? Maybe hard to have one that works with the chopsticks.
That's certainly going to be interesting to see how they end up doing that. I've been kind of wondering something similar myself. I can't really necessarily imagine how they're going to do that. I'm sure they've gotten some ideas in the works already, but yeah, I mean, with the chopsticks needing to basically come up to the top of the tower for the booster catch, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where they end up putting that arm. I'm sure it'll be retractable in some way.
Yeah, it'll be a ship QD with a tunnel.
Yeah, it'll be basically a second ship QD. So that'll be interesting for one to see how they mount it onto the tower, and I guess how they do that without interfering with the chopsticks.
Yeah, it'll be that'll be one they definitely get out of the way pre-launch. We don't have to wait for that one to get out of the way like the current one.
Right.
Well, just to add to that, I could imagine a very similar arm to the current SQD arm, a little bit higher, obviously, and the current SQD arm doesn't interfere with the chopsticks when it's operated correctly, so I guess much the same. That's the questions all answered. Thank you, Zach.
Awesome. Well, in that case, I don't know if there's anything that I may have missed that you all want to touch on.
Just a little bit of work across the highway. Maybe they're going to put some on the vaults. There's a vault over there. There's a little bit of scaffolding's going up, and there's a vacuum truck there. Maybe they're going to bring some power under the road again from those vaults. I'm not sure.
Yeah, right across from, right near the labs, near Rover 2, right there outside of D2.
Yeah, there's also some up near that vacuum truck where the other vaults were as well. So interesting to see what's going to happen there.
And across the street, it looks like they've torn up what's left as a concrete on the
concrete?
lower 3 vaults by the big white truck.
This one?
Yeah. If you go directly across by the vaporizers, there's looks like
Down in this area?
Yeah, right where your cursor is. It looks like they're digging.
Yeah, this was where all of the storage, the little storage area that they had along the wall that they deleted. Actually, sorry,
Yeah.
that was closer up here, wasn't it?
No, I believe it went all the way down at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you go down there, because before the launch they remove all of these walls, and it's crazy being able to look straight into the launch site. You basically feel like you can walk onto it, which, I mean, I wouldn't suggest, but yeah, it's definitely possible. But yeah, it's really weird the way it looks once they clean all of this up before launch. And on that note, it's kind of interesting the amount that they will have to clean up before this next launch, because I imagine any of these pipes that are down here, they'll want to remove those or install them beforehand. So it'll be interesting to see how much they actually do leading up to that launch. But I guess we will find out more next week. I'm really excited to see how all of the stuff turns out. Still waiting to see more signs of what the final product of this flame trench is going to be. So, you know, I'm like I said, I'm sure we got until at least January or February until we can get a clear idea of what the final product's going to look like. But yeah, until then, really excited for all the weekly changes, and excited for this launch coming up in less than 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll have some more to report on next week, as I'm sure we always do. So with that, I will go ahead and sign off for today. And before I do that, I actually do want to thank everybody who's hit that like button. I actually forgot to mention that the entire time during the show today. So those of you who are still with us, if you would do us a favor and hit that like button, really appreciate you for doing so, and also appreciate everybody who has donated. Yeah, it's really awesome having all of you be able to help us out every week with these flyovers. All of your support is definitely much appreciated, and hope to see you all next week. So with that, I will pass it off to whoever takes it next.
I'll go.
Okay.
Or do you want to go, Alex?
No, you go.
Oh man, it's been a good flyover. It's always great to see all the changes. And again, as Zach said, thank you to everybody that contributes in so many different ways, whether it's ability to contribute by giving, or just by helping us figure out what's going on during show and tell and on Discord and whatnot. We really appreciate it, and look forward to the next one. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you, everyone, as well, and everybody in chat. It was a good show with a whole lot more changes than I thought. And Stephanie, you're up.
Okay, I'll thank Emlyn for pushing the buttons and turning the knobs and running the production side of the show today, and Jen for doing the scheduling. And I'm just going to do what Joe does and says, main engine cut off. Love you, bye.